So you may have heard the news. It looks like we're going to have yet again another hurricane or tropical storm hitting the coastline of Florida. And like many Floridians, you're thinking, what do I need to do to prepare? Now, while you've probably done a lot of things to get your household ready, your food supplies ready, and you're feeling like, well, what about the garden? Like, what do I do? Well, today what we're going to be talking about is we're going to just do kind of a quick crash into things to be thinking about with your garden. And I have a guest joining me today, my dad, which, like, why does that matter? But he is a former emergency services and public safety director for multiple counties throughout the years and has a lot of experience with actually dealing with hurricanes, tropical storms, and emergency events. So he's going to be giving some of his perspective along with my added gardening perspective, so we can talk about things to think about when preparing for a tropical storm or hurricane in your Florida garden. 5 days out. What are we doing, Dad?
5 days out, we're pre-planning, we're preparing, we're walking our property, we're seeing what needs to be done, and you're putting in your mind what you may need to do as you take care of yourself, your family, your house, your supplies.
So this is also doing things like topping off your hurricane supplies, making sure you have a full tank of gas. I know that's not really garden related, but that's what I'm doing during this time period. The other thing is if I have projects that have been just hanging out there, AKA the mulch pile that has not finished being put, I'm finishing it. I'm getting that done. Right? So I don't have to worry about it.
Right.
I don't have to manage that. I just finish that, get it done, get it gone.
Yep, that's what you need to do.
I'm also stopping all new projects. So no more seed planting, no more putting in transplants. I'm not buying anything new. Basically, whatever's in the ground is in the ground. If it's not in the ground yet, if I can hold it through a storm, I'm holding it through the storm. That's me from a gardening perspective.
And that's smart. That's a smart thought.
Hey, good me. Okay, so 3 days out, this is when the mapping on the projections for the hurricane or tropical storm become a little bit more accurate.
They become significantly more accurate. So at this point, you've got to actually start executing. So you've taken care of yourself. You've taken care of your home. You've got your supplies. You know what your escape plan is if you've got to leave, if you've got to relocate. So in those last few days, that's when you actually start implementing what you need to do in your garden and outside.
And so I think, what is the biggest thing that becomes a risk both to people and property in our gardens?
Yeah, in the gardens, it is anything that can become a projectile. So understanding as the winds rise and as the winds begin to pick up, debris, things that you may have placed in the garden, if they're not of sufficient weight or they have too much of a surface area to be picked up, they're going to be picked up and used as a projectile against your home.
Now let's talk about potted plants. Now I'm not a big potted plant person because I kill them a lot. So we don't have a ton of examples, but I do have like random pots in my yard. At what point, so if we're looking at tropical depression, tropical storm, Cat 1 through 5, when do I need to go and pull all my pots in?
Well, you really have to look at the pot, but like this one right here, tropical storm, I'd probably pull that in.
Okay, because it's empty?
It's empty, it's easy enough to get in there.
So there's this pot right here. This huge behemoth of a pot with this desert rose in it. What would you say for something that big?
No, for something that big, you're fine for a tropical storm, probably even a category 1, probably even a category 2 at 100 pounds.
Yeah?
Yeah.
It might be 200 pounds, honestly.
It's 200 pounds. I mean, it's weighted down. It's not going to be something that's going to be easy to pick up. When you start talking about a 3, 4, and 5, you're going to have to consider that you may need to move that.
Okay. What about my arch trellises?
Arch trellises, no. Because arch trellises, there's no mass there. The wind really is just going to pass right through that. If you look at that trellis there, there's nothing really to grab. The wind's just going to pass right through.
They're big hunking pieces of wood.
Yeah, until you get to a major storm, I wouldn't worry about them too much. I think maybe category 2, but at least a category 3 and above, you're going to need to probably try thinking of relocating them if you've got some place to put them out of the wind.
Gosh.
Otherwise, though, yeah, because the fact is they're cut down. That's the sort of stuff, as you said, a 2x4, the testing that we do for our homes, for our envelopes of our buildings, that's the sort of projectile they use to see what damage will be caused.
Yeah. So if we are at like a category 1 hurricane, like you're going to take a direct hit category 1, like would you say that in preparation, tomato cages and stakes need to go inside?
Not tomato cages and stakes, no, not really.
What point would you remove tomato cages and stakes like what we have here in this garden?
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys can see them. So we got tomato twists, we've got small pepper cages down here. When would you say these need to go inside?
Yeah, I mean, when you're a category 2, you have to start looking at it, but certainly a major storm, which is a category 3 and above, as classified by the National Hurricane Center, then at that point, these things have to go in.
Okay, so one of the questions that I got from a viewer and friend of the channel is that, should I go around start pruning plants? Should I start doing a lot of modifications for my plants? Here's the thing. Anything that's dead material that's going to go flying off during the storm, if you have the time and you have the equipment and the ability to do it, yes, take off any major dead branches. I'm not talking twigs. I'm talking about things like we talked about that are projectiles. 2, when it comes to like banana plants, someone was asking me, should I start pruning a bunch of stuff? Happy, healthy plants have the best odds for making it through a storm. So depending on the level of the storm, we want to consider, do we want to go and support plants like the bananas, which are starting to lean over, where a good gust of wind could knock it over. But here's the thing, if you weren't going to do it for summer storms, we're at the tipping point, because tropical depressions and tropical storms aren't that much stronger than what we see during our summertime. So if you think it could have made it through that, then I wouldn't stake it. If it was on the edge and you were like, oh, I always felt like I needed to stake it, well, then go stake it. Unless we're going to be above Cat 3, and that's another projectile. Does that make sense? So if it's going to be a projectile, don't do it because it's Cat 3 or higher. If it's below that and you've been feeling like it needs to be staked, whether there was a storm or not, then stake it. Make sense? Good. 24 hours out from the storm, or you're having to evacuate. What are we doing?
Now, at that point, you've got to do your final actions, whatever is part of your plan. So if it is removing the remaining items that have to go, get those out of the garden. Anything, rewalk it again. Make sure you've gotten all the projectiles out. And if there's any harvesting that you have to do, then that's the time to get it done.
Now, when it comes to the garden, one of the things that you should be looking at, besides removing structures and stuff, is where are you at on your harvest? So we put a lot of effort into these vegetables, and to lose them all would really, really suck. But we can minimize how much loss we have by making sure anything that's ready to harvest or is just a little early, grab it, get it inside, do not wait. Now, what I'm gonna be doing is I'm gonna be looking at 24 hours before I either have to hunker down or evacuate, because I do live in an evacuation zone. I will be doing a final survey of any plants, and I'll make sure that I leave myself a good hour or two to go through and harvest anything that I can. So like my loofahs that are gonna have to dry out, they're just gonna have to be goners. But on the flip side, I've got a whole bunch of beans that are hanging in here that I can grab. I've got some pumpkins that are pretty close to being ripe. So I'm monitoring all of those to make sure I can get them. Oh, but like this loofah, I can use like a zucchini, so I can take this one. Lots of beans. Jeez, I got work to do. See, I've even got some pumpkins that definitely gonna be considering grabbing. So I'm gonna be going around taking out pumpkins, loofahs, any of the kind of harder, if I know now that like we've got a Cat 3 or higher going on, now I'm gonna deal with the fact that I might make a choice for removing a projectile, but damage a plant. And I can make the final call if I need to stake up a banana. I mean, really, that's the only thing.
Okay. It sounds like you've got some work to do.
Yeah, I gotta move that mulch pile.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to the garden, kind of the two challenges that we're dealing with tropical storms, depressions, and hurricanes is rain and wind.
Those are it.
When it comes to there just being a lot of rain, how much rain are we talking about?
You could have 18 plus inches in the worst case scenario.
And this is where having mulch and healthy soil become really important, because they act like a giant sponge for all this moisture. Healthy soil can absorb a lot. Now, is it gonna probably be underwater? Yeah, if it's that much rain, it really just can't move through fast enough. So the biggest thing that you can do when we get, it's kind of like to a day or two out, is just shut off your sprinklers, right? Allow for those things to dry out a little bit more, not 5 days out, probably in that 2 to 3 day range at most. Allow it to dry out more. And even if you're not gonna be a direct hit, we're all gonna get a lot of rain across the state.
We are. Yeah.
Now, if we do get a direct hit from the storm, and we're not just talking rain, the water, is there anything you're doing about the water?
No, the water is going to take care of itself.
The big thing is that if you have sprinklers, make sure they stay off until the area has drained sufficiently. I don't know how many storms I've been through, and there was literally Irma. It is dumping rain still post, and people's sprinklers are going off like nobody's business. Shut your sprinklers off. Shut your sprinklers off until your soil is starting to dry out. And what you want to do is dig into it a little bit. If it looks like mud an inch down, don't add water. Let it have a couple more days, let it dry out, and then you can put your regular sprinkler systems back on, okay? Other thing, safety first, right? Watch out for electric lines.
Safety first. Watch out for electric lines, watch out for other hazards. Survey your home itself, your envelope, make sure things are, had been protected, didn't get damaged, especially your roof.
things that you can look out for in your garden, right? Look for trees that have significant leans all of a sudden. Large branches that are holding on but have not fallen yet. Those are the things that are gonna hurt people first. So the first thing I'm doing, electric wires, large branches, and then looking for trees that suddenly have leans that did not have leans before. Those are the things that are gonna cause sudden and catastrophic damage to both yourself or property, right?
That's correct.
One of the first things after the storm, after I make sure that the area is secure and safe, is you may find some plants that were ripped up out of the ground. If you can, try to put them back in the ground quickly. Small, newer plants oftentimes may bounce back, and you'll find out in the next 3 to 5 days whether they were able to bounce back or not. So just put them back in the ground really fast. The other thing I'm checking on quickly is all my food plants. Those are one of my top priorities after a storm. I want to make sure that any of my harvest any little problems with my harvest plants are going to be fixed quickly, because you have the best odds after the storm of being able to get things back on track, things that are knocked over, damaged. So the next thing is that your yard looks like not great because a whole bunch of stuff's been knocked down. So what do you do?
Well, if your home's okay and your family's okay, you're going to have this desire to get back out and to start cleaning up your yard. And that's something that we refer to in emergency management as debris management. What you're going to do is you're going to want to know what your community's plan is.
Go and start being prepared to just go through and prune. You will have branches that got broken because stuff was flying around. You have plants that have been snapped in half. Get the dying things out of the way, because it will allow the healthy plants to have a better chance to bounce back quickly if they're not competing and fighting with things that are really just going to be dead in about 72 hours out. So clean up your yard, broken material, dead material. This is whole plants that just kind of keeled over.
Yeah.
I will tell you, a bunch of umbrella plants are about to fall down.
Yeah, anything that's green, right? Yeah. Essentially anything that's green, you're going to take it, you're going to want to get it out to the curbside. They will sit there eventually. Your community will eventually come and get that for you. And
have a chainsaw or have a friend with one.
Yeah.
And then have another friend with a pickup truck.
Yeah.
And then now it's time to put the garden back together and start making plans for any open and empty spots and get excited for the future, because you made it. You're done with the tropical storm and hurricane. Good job. Well, I just want to say a big thank you to my dad for coming over here and helping talk safety and hurricanes and tropical storms.
Yeah, so I'm going to have to go back and start my hurricane preparations.
Yeah. Okay. Have a good one.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.